Thank you very much for coming to another session of our masterclass series in social work. And today, I'm delighted to have Anifa Cole joining us to deliver a session on section 117, which I'm really looking forward to hearing from. She has lots and lots of expertise, but she's going to let you know more. Oh, you already have the microphone. So anyway, enjoy the session. I'll be here around.
All right, thank you. Morning, guys. Morning, everyone. So my name is Anifa Cole. I trained here at Brunel, not this site, when we were over at Aizawa many years ago. I won't disclose how long. So I qualified at Brunel, and then a lot of my career has been based working in hospitals. So most of my social work practice has been in hospitals and in specialist settings as well. I've also worked in the community. I've done a bit of practice teaching, so I've supervised newly qualified students. What else have I done? I've sat on the foster care panels. So when they're recruiting foster carers to look at, I've sat on panels as well. But most of my experience has been in London hospitals, some of the big ones like Charing Cross, King's College, St Mary's, Paddington. I've also worked in Surrey as well. But most of my experience has been with adults. So I've never really worked with children, but I've worked at the point where children transition from, say, CAMS, for example, younger adults with mental health, into adult services. So I've been at that transition point. And that's it really. I mean, that's it in a nutshell, but you can imagine after so many years of working in different clinical settings, community settings, I've got quite a bit of experience, put it that way. And now I'm currently working in old people's mental health. So last year I was working in younger adults with mental health, so from 18 upwards, so from when they transitioned over to adult services to 65. And now I'm working with 65 and above. So that's it really. I don't know if you want to ask me any questions, but I will just kick off the presentation. Is that okay? Yeah. So you're probably wondering why section 117 of the Mental Health Act. This is an area of interest to me because of all the, I call it a battleground really, section 117, because this is where you actually see the politics and the dynamics, the strain on resources, competing, and patients needing the support in the community, what's there, what's not there. So there's a lot of multidisciplinary working when it comes to 117 aftercare. Yeah. So it is under the Mental Health Act. Section 117 is a duty that's placed on local authorities and health. It's not something, it's non-negotiable, if you like, Section 117. If someone has been sectioned under the Mental Health Act, when they leave hospital or before they leave, you start planning for their aftercare. And the whole purpose of aftercare is to make sure they remain well, we support them well in the community, and that they are not readmitted back into hospital. So that is, in a sense, that is section 117. That is what it aims to achieve. Yeah? Well, as you can imagine, it's not a linear process. It can take time. During that time, patients can fluctuate, deteriorate, just because of the nature of mental health. So it's always good to, when you have that window of opportunity, if you can, try and get patients out back home so they can settle again, reintegrate into the community. Because one thing I've learned about mental health is that it's not like your general hospital where people go in with physical problems. People can be in hospital for a long time with mental health. And I mean years sometimes. And people who are severely mentally ill can be in an even more secure hospital setting. Yeah, that's when they can't go back home. Yeah. So 117, what is it? It's a legal right to free tailored health and social care support provided jointly by NHS and social services. Designed to help people live in the community, as I said, and manage their mental health, prevent relapse, and prevent readmission. So it covers health, housing, and social care, social support. Yeah? Oh, you said use the arrow. Okay, so people can be admitted to hospital under different sections, yeah? But not all of them relate to after section 117. So there are different sections of the mental health Act you can imagine. You can be brought in on a 5, which is like an urgent emergency. You can be brought in on a 2, which is for assessment, and you can be discharged. But these are the sections that if you're admitted to hospital under any of these, you will be entitled to 117 aftercare. And the one the section 37, 45, and 47, those are usually where the court has ordered that somebody is not well enough to go home, or go, say people with a forensic background, for example, if they're criminal, they have a criminal offense against them, they can't go back home, or they can't go back to just living in the community. So the court will order for them to be placed in hospital. So people under 37, 45A, 47, 48 is where the court has usually ordered that these people have to go into hospital. So the most commonly ones that we come across is section 3. Yeah. So people are admitted, they come into hospital, say under section 2, which is for assessment. Sometimes you can be assessed, your medication can be tweaked, you might do okay, and some people never progress to section 3. But there is a time limit on section 2, it's 28 days. So within that 28 days, the clinicians and the MDT have to decide whether the person is now well enough to go back home or whether they need to go on to a section 3. Yeah? So as I said, it is not discretionary, 117, it's an absolute requirement. Service users should not be charged. They should not be charged, regardless of how the service is delivered. And the purpose, as I said, to prevent relapse. But this is where it gets really interesting. It sits at the intersection of law, ethics, resource pressure, and the misunderstanding of it, or the wrong application of 117 can have severe financial implications. And you would think, well, it's all written there. It says this is what you have to do. This is, but you'd be surprised. And I will show you later a case where a local authority was found to have been charging people for services when they shouldn't have, because they were entitled to 117. And one case was uncovered, and now they have to review about 250 cases of where people have been charged for whatever services, housing or social care, and they have to refund those people. But they were fined £68,000. So it is quite serious, and with all my years of practice, I am still surprised when local authorities, or help when they get it wrong. Yeah, when they get it wrong. I'll give you an example. For example, we have I currently work in 2 hospital settings for older people with mental health. And there's one patient there who has been in hospital just over 2 years. And the plan was for him to be discharged home on a community treatment order. That is also can be, if you're 117, you can go home on a community treatment order and still receive support. The sticking point came between the local authority and health, even though there were local arrangements for how you deal with, service users who are on a CTO. The issue was this gentleman is resistant to his medication, so he needs to have his medication administered in the community. So they wanted to get him out of hospital, put him on a CTO. If you don't put him on a CTO, he won't be compliant with medication. So they were trying to get him back home. And the issue was community treatment order. So you can be discharged from a section 3, for example, and it comes with an order that you go back home, but on the condition that you agree to either allow the community nurses to come and give you your medication periodically, or you attend a place, so in a hospital setting, for example, or a health center, to take your medication. And this gentleman, he needed support with medication. And the local authority and health said to the local authority, you put in the carer to prompt him with medication. It was medication before the depot injection, because he's now on a depot injection. And the local authority said, no, we're not going to do that, because we had an arrangement that anyone who goes out on a CTO, if they go on, it's usually a health, related to the health, and in this case, related to the mental health. So you have to put in a carer to support him with his medication. And the local authority said no. And this, of course, and this has been going back and forth. The local authority, in the end, which is almost just over 2 years now, the local authority said, okay, we will find the care provider for you, but you have to pay. You have to pay for it. Sorry? No, not the patient. This is the argument. The patient is completely sitting on one side, and this has been going on for over 2 years. And so they said, okay, we'll commission the care, but you will have to pay. But by the time they got to that arrangement, that agreement, the client had deteriorated. He deteriorated, his mental health seriously deteriorated, to the point where he now needs a depot injection, no longer the oral tablets, he needs an injection. And not just that, he's very resistant, he's quite, he has to be restrained to give him his depot injection, and you can't manage that in the community. Imagine nurses turning up at somebody's house, going in there to restrain. So because his mental health has declined, and because of the way he now needs his medication to be administered, he's going to be moved to another secure setting away. So these are the sort of arguments that go on between health and social services. I'll come to some other interesting ones soon. Oh yes, so this is just an addendum or an addition. So people, I don't know if you've heard about Section 17. So Section 17 is when people have short-term leave. That can be escorted or unescorted. So some people who are inpatients, if they're starting to improve, they're looking better, they start allowing them leave, depending on the severity of their mental illness. So some people can be allowed an hour's leave, escorted on the grounds, or an hour's leave or 2 hours leave unescorted, which means they can pop into town and just stroll around, whatever. Or you can have unescorted leave back home, or escorted leave back home. Yeah? Just stop me if I'm not making sense. But you will come across this if you're doing it. Have you done the Mental Health Act yet? Yeah.
Not Not in detail.
Not in detail. Well, you will come across some of these. And some of these I actually only came across when I actually got into practice. Yeah. So you can go home on Section 17 leave. Yeah.
Okay, in Children Act, in the Children Act, we still have a Section 17, which for children in need. Mm-hmm. So how are you gonna? So does it mean? I thought it was only in Children's Act.
No.
Section
That's
17.
a completely different act.
Okay. So that's why I want
to... I don't even know what Section 17 in the Children's Act
okay.
is.
That's fine. That's fine. I didn't know there is a place they apply it again. So that's why. That's fine.
But under the Mental Health Act, yes, Section 17
is there.
Is about leave.
Okay, that's fine.
Leave, yeah. Okay,
thank you so
much.
So
where people can be allowed to go home or escorted on the grounds or unescorted. So it all depends. When you're in hospital, the staff sort of monitor your presentation, how you are on a daily basis, and it is when they have the ward rounds or when we have the ward rounds, a decision is made if extra leave can be granted, escorted or unescorted. And more recently, they're trying now to make the mental health ward rounds more inclusive. So we bring the patients into the ward round. And sometimes their family members, if they're around, and they get a chance to contribute to what is being discussed about them and make their own suggestions or just express, just give them so they can have a voice rather than being in a room and decisions are being made about them. Yeah. So there's a common misconceptions about 117. People assume, even people who have been sectioned, assume it's for life. It's never. Having said that, people can be on Section 117 for a very long time, for years. So how do you decide somebody is mentally well? They don't have a mental health problem anymore. As you can imagine, quite tricky. So you definitely need a multidisciplinary meeting. So a person has to be reviewed over a period, monitored. So you can't, it's not lifelong. It can be stopped, but it has to be evidenced why this is no longer required. It's not as easy like stopping a care package under the Care Act. Yeah? Hi, that's no problem. And it's not a substitute for the Care Act, although they can run in parallel. So you can have people who are going home on a 117, and for us social workers, we have to use the Care Act. We have to do the Section 9 assessment, which is an assessment of need. We have to assess their needs, and that has to run alongside the 117. And what happens is we draw up a plan. Health also draw up their plan. And in a lot of local authorities now, they have an arrangement where they will split the cost 50-50. So we have to submit all that paperwork to our our seniors for them to agree once you've done your assessment and you've identified the kind of support they need. It's not dependent on the CPA status. I don't know if you've heard of CPA, the care program approach. The care program approach is just a framework for dealing with people with mental health, severe mental health. And it's just a framework for, assessing them, planning their care, monitoring and reviewing. But people tend to, even in practice, you will get people talking about CPA 117, where they're two separate things, although they can sit alongside. So the care program approach is about, managing the person's care, managing them in the community, reviewing them. They usually have what's called a care coordinator who checks in on them regularly. They usually have the community mental health team involved who checks in on them regularly, to make sure they're okay. And most importantly, it cannot be removed, 117 entitlement, just because the person appears well. I've seen a lot of people who appear well within my practice, and they're not well. So just because somebody appears well it has to be a formal joint decision, and it has to be monitored and reviewed over an extended period. So well evidenced. Imagine going to court and telling the judge, well, we stopped the funding because he appeared well. How that would go down. Yeah? Okay. So this is more or less saying the same thing again about discharging people from 117. Yeah? It's a formal decision. It needs to be jointly agreed and properly evidenced. Yeah? The legal consequences. So, some local authorities have been found to be, as I gave you in that example, to be charging people. Because under the Care Act, you can't charge for services. But under 117, if people are entitled to it, as long as you evidence that this need has been identified, and it is because the person needs this because as a result of their mental health. So it's related to their mental health. Yeah? As long as you can evidence that, then the local authority should not be charging, but invariably they do. So something like, do you know about Lifeline, the alarm link line, some people call it, in people's houses? If they have an emergency, they're connected to the local authority emergency line that they can use. So when you do your support plan, you need to make sure it is quite comprehensive and you include all of that. This is what they need. They need that in an emergency. They need such and such, etc. Sometimes, even when you spell it out, things get missed. So by the time that care plan, support plan, because once it leaves us, the workers, it goes off to what's called our brokerage team for the brokerage to source the services we have requested. So somewhere things can get lost in transition or translation, and somehow some people end up getting charged for their link line, for example, or Lifeline. And sometimes it's not, some patients are quite, or services are quite, with it, and they will tell you they will ask why they're being charged for such services if they're entitled to it as part of their 117. And usually it has to be stopped and they have to be refunded. Yeah? And of course, you can imagine if it goes to judicial review, goes to court, and the consequences. Judges are not sympathetic with when people get this wrong, because obviously they're trying to protect vulnerable adults. Yeah. And also, just because the local authority and health cannot agree, doesn't mean the person should be left without a service. Well, here comes the sticking point now. So we've said this is what the person needs. If they go home, they need 3 times a day somebody to come, help them with personal care, help them. But sometimes there's disagreement as to who will pay. Even though there's an agreement that they've agreed that it will be 50-50. Yeah. And so sometimes people can be either left without support or not discharged at all. Like the example I gave you of the gentleman earlier who has been waiting for a care package and ends up being in hospital for over 2 years.
Oh my God.
Because they're loggerheads about who will pay. Well, what the local authority says, quite rightly, I'm a social worker, I work for local authorities, so because they're the ones who commission care and they source care from providers. If they put in a package of care, for example, somebody who goes on a CTO, for example, and maybe, 6 months down the line, 12 months down the line, the person comes off the CTO. We are not always informed. So we can carry on paying for that service. The person must still, social services will carry on paying because somewhere somebody hasn't told somebody that the CTO has ended. Yeah? And so people, this is what happens.
So it means there is a communication.
Oh, yes.
Breach or
yes.
gap.
Yeah. And I do a lot of training with this company called Edge Training, and this is where they reported that a local authority had to award £68,000 because, they failed to follow the 117 rules. When you go into your mental health and you look, it is very clear. It is a duty. It's not like the Care Act, where the local authority has a power or a duty. So that means there's discretion. They can or they cannot, or they can, but they will charge you. Or if they don't charge you, they'll do a financial assessment to see how much you can contribute if you can. So it's two completely different approaches. Yeah. But if somebody is under 117 and they need that care, as long as you evidence it, then they shouldn't be paying for that support. So, for example, some people, when they become very unwell, they start to self-neglect. They don't look after themselves. They don't eat properly. But if they had support going in, at least you could, that could be monitored through the agencies to make sure they're having personal care and they're eating, healthily, etc., and they got their medication, etc., etc. So you can't just stop. And this is where the local authority says, well, if we have put in the care, you end the CTO, but the person still needs the support. We are carrying on paying. You've withdrawn a long time ago, and we're left with a bill paying for somebody's care, because we can't then go back and try and financially assess somebody who has already been in support of this care under 117. So do you see where the problems start to arise and the fighting starts, if you like? Yeah.
So if this is a duty to provide, so then it means that there's no assessment of income. So someone who is quite wealthy might have access to all different resources. They're still entitled.
It is not means tested. It doesn't matter. You can be wealthy, but you still need 117 input. As long as you've been detained under those sections I pointed out earlier, you should not be charged. Now, what you'll find is there's a lot of times people stay on a section. Well, they try to either section 2, get them discharged, or they become informal. And if they become informal, then that's when they decide, okay, you can stay on the ward informally whilst we continue to plan. As long as they're not objecting, that's fine. Yeah, they can stay on the ward. What the tipping point is tipping over into section 3, because that has consequences, all kinds of consequences, most significantly financial. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about a case Sorry.
What happens if a person is put on section 117 and with the local authority he cannot pay if there was an agreement of paying half, 50-50?
No.
And the person cannot pay.
It's not the person who it is split. It is between health and social services.
Oh, okay.
So what we do our assessment. Yeah. We say, this is what Mr. X needs on a daily or weekly basis, and we forward that to what they call integrated care boards now. They used to be called CCGs, and they're now integrated care boards. We submit all of that. But prior to that, the local authority and the local ICB would have come to an arrangement that whatever care package we submit, the cost will be 50-50. So when we send the documentation over to health, we're saying we're paying 50% of this, you have to pay, and then they have to agree it and send it back, and then we can set up the care. Okay. Yeah? So it's not to the person. It's not to the person. It's different under the Care Act. You have to think just mental health. Yeah. Yeah, at the moment, just think mental health. Under the Care Act, as you probably know, people can be assessed. They can be financially assessed as well. And, sometimes they have to pay. And sometimes people need the care and they refuse to pay. What happens sometimes when people go into a hospital, under the Care Act now, forget about mental health for a minute, you do an assessment, maybe they're not so bad. Maybe after a few weeks they will be back on their feet. So some local authorities have, just a sec there, have a rehabilitation service within their service. So the person can go home for up to 6 weeks and they can have that service free of charge just to get them back on their feet. Yeah? But, yeah, so that person, after the 6 weeks, what we find in practice, some people will say, I don't need it anymore. Because after the 6 weeks, charging could start. So we have that 6 weeks to do a financial assessment, etc., to work out how much they'll have to pay. It's amazing how quickly people become well and can manage when they have to pay. So the local authorities do have a job trying to get money back clear, off people who are receiving. And sometimes you can't just take out a service. We have to go in and review and see what the person is like. They may well not be managing. So we can't pull out the service. We have to continue to provide the service to maintain them, to prevent them from coming into hospital. So this is where, some of the tensions lie, not just with mental health, but even within social services itself. Yeah? Yeah, you had a question?
Yeah, so my question is, so when with the CARE Act, we as social workers are required to do like an assessment for a person to see if they have care needs. And then with those care needs, I just want to get understanding. So with those care needs, they can be charged depending on the criteria, if the criteria is met for their financial means test. But then if there's a layer of mental health, which then requires them to be sectioned in a hospital, for example, then what happens is Section 117 now becomes not joint, but
it trumps.
It trumps.
It trumps
it takes
the CARE Act
precedence.
in a way. Yeah.
So then the services that they get if they're discharged or when they're discharged from the hospital, those services are free. And that's something that is discussed with the hospital team and then the local authority, but the service users themselves are not involved in the conversation. Okay. And there's been issues with local authorities charging service users when they shouldn't be charging.
They shouldn't be charging.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
I know a family that one of them has health issues, and there was a time she was admitted in the hospital, and they discharged her that she has to go home. Like what you said the care package will be 6 weeks. Then after 6 weeks, so I was trying to find out, because this woman, she's not working, she's on the income support, all this, their benefit. Then I was thinking, after 6 weeks, how is she going to cope? So such a person that is not working, stayed on income support, and the 6-week package of care is, so how is she going to cope?
Okay, so the thing about the CARE Act or social services, there's a threshold of how much, savings you should have. 23,500. Okay. If you have savings below that or less, you have to go through a financial assessment. If your only income, your sole income is benefits, so as you say, income support, or
that's what
if they will assess on that, and usually at the end of that assessment, people come out as nil contribution. They don't have to pay. If that is your sole income, or it might be just a nominal amount that you have to pay. But if you have anything over 23,500, you will be assessed. You probably have to pay full cost. So they can be financially assessed, and when they're financially, if that is their main source of income, then the assessment has to be based on that. Yeah. Thank you so much. No problem. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify also that because I've worked in, my last placement was adult services, I believe that even if you're on income support and benefits, if you do have savings above the threshold,
Yeah.
you will still have
will
to pay. Because a lot of people think because they're on benefits,
Yeah.
they don't have to pay.
That's why
but
I
they
said...
own a £250,000
Yeah.
house. That's
You can
still
be on
part of
benefits
the-
and live in a... Yeah.
£1 million house is still part of your savings because that belongs to you.
It belongs to you.
Yeah.
And the local
you can
authority...
take money out of it.
Yeah, the financial assessment people can check. So you can say you're just on income support or attendance allowance or whatever, but they want to know, I don't know if you've seen these forms, they want to know what assets do you have, do you have shares? Because they check the stock exchange as well. So they can find out what you have. And if they find out that you have more than what you're declaring, of course you'll have to pay. They won't stop the service, but you'll have to pay full costs. And sometimes what I say to people who have money or savings over above the threshold, you're better off organizing something yourself. Or social service, some people like to go through social services even when they have the means, because our providers are usually approved, so they've been vetted, they've been through a process, so we know these people are going to do what they say they're going to do. So some people like to come through the local authority, and then they just get charged an admin fee on top for processing that. Yeah. So that's how it works. So you can't have savings or just say, yeah, you may be on income support, but you will be financially assessed on everything. They will find out. They have ways and means to find out. Yeah, so any more questions? Should I move on?
Now that one confuses me because you said with section 117, you said with section 117, even if you're wealthy, they will pay for you.
Yeah.
How, now you say, and then they have to assess.
Because we're talking about the Mental Health Act.
Yes.
Which is a duty. Section 117 is a duty.
Yes.
As long as you've been detained under one of those sections, especially section 3. It's not a decision that is come to lightly. There's lots of meetings, lots of ward rounds, etc., for you to go on a section 3, in fact.
Yes.
And when you leave, usually you probably need support in the community. So this is where the confusion comes. So people think, okay, I can be, they can be charged, etc. Not under the Mental Health Act, and definitely not under 117. 117 is non-negotiable. Just think of it that way. Yeah. I've currently got a gentleman in hospital who is on a 2, section 2. And I would say, yeah, it's fairly okay to be discharged now. And the plan is for him to go into some kind of residential setting because he's mobile, he can eat and drink, he's able to communicate. He did have a dip in his mental health, but he has means. And he has selected a very nice residential, very posh residential home. And he's going to be paying for his care himself, which he doesn't mind. If he had gone on a 3, which means he still has severe and enduring mental health, complex mental health problems that need regular monitoring, needs injection, etc., that would have to be split between health and social services. Yeah.
Would
So
it still have been his choice of when he goes?
if he's paying, yes, of course.
No, but if it was a section 3.
If it was a section 3, now
It would be
that's a
your
very
choice.
good question. The local authority is allowed to make what is called a reasonable offer. So we probably won't put him in a residential home with a spiraling staircase and draped curtains and all, and a piano in the foyer. And all. It probably wouldn't be one of those. It'd probably be one of the ones the local authority deems this will be a reasonable offer. Yeah, a reasonable setting for... If he can go, if he decides it's not posh enough for me, I want somewhere a bit posher, the local authority won't stop them. They can go there, but they will have to pay the difference. Yeah, so it's called a top-up. The person will have to pay the difference. The local authority has a cap or a ceiling on what, They will say, we can offer you a residential placement. These are our choices, and these are the ones that meet our spending threshold. You say, no, I don't like them, or I like them, or no, I want my own, which costs a lot more. The local authority will say, fine, this is how much we will stop at. And even health will probably say the same. This is our threshold. and then they can pay the top up, the difference. I don't know if you know what the costs of some of these homes are, but they can be quite substantial. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay, so this is the case I wanted to talk to you about. This is a case I actually worked on personally. I think it's one of the most challenging I've ever worked on. And it brought everything together, if you like. So this was a young person who had been in care from the age of 13, institutionalized. And by the time she was discharged, she was like 23. So, yeah, so she had a diagnosis of schizophrenia, and she also had, she was also on the autistic spectrum. She had that. But added to the autistic spectrum, she had an added profile, which is called pathological demand avoidance, PDA, which is an added profile, which makes it even more complex. Because the thing about PDA is, well, you know, people with autism, they can be quite challenging at times. They have a lot of needs, they have a lot of sensory needs, they're very sensitive to noise and sound, etc. She had this added profile where you cannot place too many demands on her. If you place too many demands, you can trigger a meltdown. And they were prone to really very aggressive, really, really seriously aggressive physically. And that proved challenging for years. So the local authority, from the age of 13, kept placing her in different settings. I think by the time she got to 23, she had been in 19 settings. And none of them could manage because she was so complex. And none of them had picked up on the fact that she could have this added profile to her autism. And it was her final placement, where it was in a secure hospital, that they had a specialist team there who decided to pursue the PDA, pathological demand avoidance, sort of approach to caring for her. And so she ended up staying there, I don't know, quite some time. I think from the age of 19, I believe. And then by the time she was getting into her 20s, they decided, well, she's been in an institution for so long, it's probably time that she start having some kind of normality in her life and move her to the community where she can, you know, access local activities, meet with others, make friends. She had all her friends were clinical staff, nurses and doctors and all the people she knew, apart from her family. So she never had the opportunity to, you know, go to birthday parties, go to a school disco, or she never had any of that. All the people she knew were just clinical. And so the planning of that was quite challenging, as you can imagine. The health, NHS, in fact, it wasn't even the ICB who funded her placement in the community, it was the NHS England. Because she had a very high sensory needs, so something to do with the lights would trigger her. Noise, too much noise. She needed somewhere like I don't know what you call those places where children play, soft play. She couldn't have, the house had to be specifically designed. It was a bespoke house specifically designed for her. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. On top of that, she had her dad was very, very proactive and very vocal and went to the media and everywhere else, you know, fighting to make sure her voice was heard and she got what she deserved, if you like. Yeah. So the NHS had to purchase a house for her. And she ended up needing, I think it's 24-hour care in her own home. She has 5 staff during the day. She needs 5 staff because.
What do? They're fine.
They just sit. She can move around the house. Yeah. They do take her out, but she always has to be. There has to be 5 people. Even when she goes out in a car, in a vehicle, her mobility vehicle, she needs, and she has to sit in the middle at the back, because she could grab for the driver. She could grab, So she has 5 carers who keep her occupied, make sure she's safe. The windows had to have special locks, the works. And she has an additional 2 staff who are on call in case it kicks off and they have to respond. So 7 members of staff every day. Something I'm going to talk about, I think maybe in the next session, which is another battleground for local authorities, is ordinary residents, where somebody is deemed to be resident. So this lady, now she lives in a house, a very nice house, that backs onto a farm. It's got a fish pond, it's got everything. And she's got all this staff looking after her. But they couldn't find a place like that in the local authority where she lived. So you can guess what that means now. Because the thing about ordinary residents, which is where it differs under the Mental Health Act, where it differs from Care Act, is where you were detained immediately, where you were living before you were detained. So she's now living in a different local authority where she's got care, everything going on, fine. If she was to, and the local authority that placed her there is paying for the cost. Yeah, they're 50-50 split. If she were to be detained again in that locality, the new locality picks up the funding. So you can see where people start thinking, what's going to happen here? So you can imagine the receiving authority, if all that cost was going to go over to them. So the best thing to do is to try to keep her safe, give her as much staff, make sure all her needs are met to ensure she doesn't relapse and she doesn't need to go back into hospital, especially not under a 3, because the new local authority will have to pick up the tab. Yeah? Does that make sense?
So complex.
It's
so complex, yeah.
Under the Care Act, the local authority, under the Care Act, the local authority sometimes need to determine. So to get care and support under the Care Act in a locality, you need to prove you've been there's a proof of residence, local connection, etc. They wouldn't just provide care for you under the Care Act because you say, oh, this is where I'm living now. You see? Yeah? So this is where it gets really complex. And then on top of that, her parents were divorced. So there was a lot of tension between mom and dad. They had to they have to visit at separate times, different days of the week. And let me just see. Yeah. So it was just a very, as you can imagine, I've really just skimmed over it, to be honest. But there were a lot of complexities. So, but eventually she moved into her own house. But as I say, it's very touch and go. So what the local authority have done in that case, they bought the NHS, they bought the property, but they handed it over to like a housing association. So if anything should happen, if she were to be recalled back into hospital for an extended period, they could let the property out and get some income from it. Yeah? So that might be the saving grace for the receiving local authority. Yeah.
For me, I just came in because
That's fine.
I didn't really get the full conversation, but then this part that you said, if she was to be recalled under the section 117 into hospital.
Under 3.
Sorry, 113.
No, 3.
On
she goes
section
back
3.
in. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm just looking at what's up there.
That's okay.
So, say for example, if she goes into hospital for, say, 3 months, that is not a sufficient time for the property to be let out, I would assume.
I can only guess they've made arrangements for the rent or whatever to be paid. But even when she was placed there, the Housing Association was trying to get her to claim housing benefit, which they shouldn't have been doing, because it's all supposed to be free.
Yes.
117. Yeah.
Why I kind of come in is because I saw this applying Section 117, and at this moment, that's my placement, and these are the things that I do.
Oh, is it? Okay,
so,
well, you will see a lot then.
So,
you will come across a lot, yeah.
I wanted to ask, in terms of like your journey from finishing at Brunel to then going to local, if you don't mind me asking.
No.
How is it like in terms of getting to where you're at now in terms of your role?
In terms of?
Your role, like what you do now, in terms of, as students, most of the things we learn is just going to local authority, but then having like niche roles that you have, for example, could you just let us know about your journey to where you're at now? And
I missed the last bit. So a lot of you think you're going to local authorities, is that what you're saying?
No, it's like
when you finish.
From the teaching we've gotten, most of it is like, you graduate, you finish, then you work in a local authority.
Yeah.
But then with niche roles that, like, for example, the one you have, how did you get introduced to it, and how did you come across what you're doing now?
When I first qualified from Brunel, my first job was in a hospital team, and I was the hospital team.
Okay.
One man up.
Wow.
So you can imagine the amount of I had no confidence. I was like, what am I doing here? But I was the only social worker having to deal with discharges. So the NHS also advertises jobs for social workers. Mental health services does as well. Voluntary sector, third sector, usually also recruit social workers. So it's not just local authority. I think once you start getting to practice, you then become exposed to what's going on and what's out there, what you can apply for. When I started, I started in the hospital team. Then they closed that hospital down, and then I had to go into a community team. I was in the community team for quite a few years, but just because of the way I am as a person, I always I like to I need my brain to be teased. I need to challenge. Don't know why, but anyway, it's just the way I'm wired, I guess. And I found community work a little bit too slow for me. I like to be where the action is happening. So I started applying for hospital jobs. So I worked at West Middlesex Hospital. I worked at Charing Cross. And the other hospital, I think it's Hammersmith Hospital near Wormwood Scrubs, I think, And I've worked at King's in Camberwell. But the job at King's was a specialist NHS unit, which was set up to look after people suffering from cystic fibrosis. So that was a specialist regional service, and we covered quite a large region. Looking after people with CF.
Now, one more question. In terms of what's your most, what would you say is the most challenging thing you experienced working as a social worker in a hospital setting, and how have you overcome it?
It is challenging because sometimes you can be the only social worker. You can be the local authority representative in a clinical setting. And it can be quite challenging because they will want to know what you're doing. This person needs to go home, they're ready, what support are you going to put in? But at the same time, if you're present on the ward as a social worker, you can also challenge. I've had times where they've said to me, somebody is ready for discharge, and I've gone to the ward. They said, he was walking yesterday, he walked up to the kitchen and walked back. And I went to the ward, this gentleman couldn't even get off his bed.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is, as a practitioner, you have to be able to challenge, I said, well, show me then how he walked yesterday to the kitchen and back.
Exactly. You can't even
and you can, in the MDT, you can see, well, I don't think this person is ready for discharge because this is wrong, this is not ready. You know, sometimes people need occupational therapy aids and things in their houses to use the bath safely. Sometimes those things are not in.
Yeah.
So until everything is safe, especially when people live on their own. If they go in and there's family there, you can understand. But if they live on their own, you have to make the environment as safe as possible.
Exactly.
So as a practitioner, you have to be confident in yourself to say, no, I don't think this person is ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. They will be ready in, you know, when this is done and when that is done, etc.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But you will come across challenges. You will. Like I said, this case was the most challenging for me in my entire career because it was so high profile. There was hardly anybody at my level. So the local authority sent me in there with all these high-flying executives to try and organize this lady's package of care. And it was challenging. But I learned a lot from it. You know, initially I was apprehensive, I wasn't sure, because I was actually asked to go and do this. I had a job, I was working, I was fine, and I was asked, somebody who had worked with previously, say, we got this complex case, can you come and help sort it out? So I went, not knowing I was going into the lion's den. But yeah, so I had to deal with challenge with colleagues, I had to deal with various professionals, then I had to deal with the family, I had to deal with the mother on the one side. She had her own issues going on. I had to deal with the father who's quite forceful, you know, fighting for his daughter's rights, etc. So you can imagine. And I was the go-between. I was the person reporting back to the local authority. And I was there for, I think, just over a year. Well, I went in, it took 3 years for this discharge to happen. Wow. And I went in about halfway. And previous social workers before had left. It just was too much. People actually just left or moved to other teams. So they had to bring somebody neutral. And when she was discharged, obviously it goes back to a community team, doesn't it? For them to review. Once you've done your initial review, it goes back to the community team. People then started shifting again to make sure the case doesn't land on their on their caseload. Yeah. But, yeah.
Sorry, one second. I have a question.
Yeah.
And my question is regarding the ordinary residents, yeah? Now, I wanted to know, while you're planning the discharge and putting in the services, did you have conversations with the borough that she was going to move into?
Not initially.
Did they come in as part of the MDT?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Not initially. Okay. They were informed like a few weeks before because
before she
need
moved in.
Yeah, because you need the CMHD involved.
Yeah.
Because they have to administer the depot injection, etc. So that's when you engage. Well, the ICB on that side. Yeah. The local authority, by the time she was, I'm not sure if they were written to, but they would have been written to say this person is coming into your area.
They would just be notified when she's moved, isn't it?
Sorry?
They would have just been notified.
They'll just say she's coming into your area, and then we will send the whole package. We'll send all the documents. This is the person. So if they remain well, not needing to go back into hospital, then it's fine, you know? It's all fine. Yeah. But if they sectioned again, then it could be tricky. 1 week after she moved in, I forgot to add this, 1 week after moving into this lovely property, she ran off. She has no sense, no spatial awareness, no awareness of danger, traffic, and she ran off. What happened, you know, I think it looked quite idyllic. It looked like a farmhouse with a gate and everything. And she had been watching the staff to know when they were distracted or not, you know. And she jumped over the fence and ran and kept running onto a main road. And the staff ran after. I think about one staff went back and called. One ran after her, called the others. They ran off. Police was somewhat, you know, also. She kept running. She just kept running across roads. But they eventually were able to, you know, catch her and bring her back safely. So it's things like that, you know. And also, if she got very angry in public, we don't know what she could do. very unpredictable.
Okay. My final question is, can you tell us again what she had? PTA, what does it stand for again?
Pathological demand avoidance. There's actually a PDA society. There's an organization that's set up that actually works with people with PDA, and they do a lot of research. Pathological demand avoidance. Yeah, and it is a profile of autism spectrum disorder. It's like the extreme end. Yeah. That was my first time too. I'd never heard it. I'd never heard it before. So I had to do a lot of reading. And interestingly, although I was a social worker for this client, I never worked with her one-to-one. Never spoke with her. Because she always had, you had to go to the staff or you go through her notes because of her unpredictability. So although I have walked past her, I never actually engaged one-to-one. Yeah. So all my assessments and all my care support was all from the MDTs and from her nursing notes, etc. Yeah? You can take a break now. Yeah? Take a break?
Sorry, can I just ask? Okay, can I just ask this question? While you were talking about initial reviews, I'm just querying about reviews and initial reviews and subsequent reviews, because there are times when, because for me, I work in a system where I complete a lot of reviews, and I noticed that there might be one social worker that complete this review last year. They put in specific goals and stuff like that with the client. But then, say for example, I go in and I notice that this review, yes, but what is the goals that the client...
What have been the outcomes?
Yes, it's not managed, it's not been met, and it's not sustainable in terms of, there are certain things that the service users might want to do, and I go and change those goals.
Yeah.
It doesn't, I think it's like the continuity of like setting one goal and allowing that goal to come into manifestation and for that person to, be able to achieve that goal and then move on to another. Yeah. I find that they never really get met in most cases of the reviews that I complete.
Yeah, I think the best you can do is just make sure you document those clearly, what your recommendations are,
yes.
and what the goals, what the outcomes,
yes.
because the Care Act is all about outcomes.
Yes, it is.
What does this person want to achieve? What would they like to do, etc., etc. So as long as you've documented it, you have no control over what happens with the fluidity and movement of staff.
Yes.
And this is where things get lost.
Yes, because say for example, I have a client who at some point will need to have gained some form of independence. To live with support, either at home or in the community. But at current, very able to do things, but doesn't engage in anything. But unfortunately, there is hours, a lot of hours weekly, 7 days per week, and it's just going to the coffee shop and coming back. And, it's not, the hours are not utilized, and they are not how it should be. Yeah. So for me now, I think the person would benefit from engaging, but I had to discuss with the client and the family and every individual that is involved to say this person would benefit from gaining some skills, to when the time comes for them to live independently. Yeah. Say washing and dressing, making the habitual environment safe and tidy, and maybe go out and interact with people in the community, in community services and stuff like that, which would be a better thing. And
the Care Act advocates for that. It's all about well-being, really.
Yes.
There's nothing to stop you from saying what you think would be best for this person. And I think even the Care Act has amended some aspects of the Mental Health Act, where you can be. What you provide in terms of a service is open to interpretation. You can be as broad as you want to be.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just whether the resources are there locally to meet the need.
The resources are there, but I don't think the resource was used properly.
Yeah, but I think that was when we were under the NHS and Community Care Act. It was, this is your care package, this is what you get. Somebody comes in 3 times a day and this is what they do, etc., etc. But with the Care Act now, we're trying to make it a bit more inclusive.
Yes.
Finding out what the person wants.
Yes.
What we are going to do now is to do some practice applications to what we've learned so far. I'm going to ask you to get together in small groups, let's say of 3 people. And there are 3 scenarios. We are going to start with the scenario 1, and if we have time, we'll go through all the other ones. So you have around between 10 and 15 minutes to discuss with your group about scenario 1, which is on housing. So there's not a lot of information about the case study, so those are questions that you might need to ask. If you were a social worker in this case scenario, what sort of questions would you ask? What is it that you can answer? What is it that you can do, given the information that you already have on how Section 117 works? Any questions so far?
Our case was on housing.
Yeah.
A man discharged from Section 3 needs supported accommodation due to relapse risk. We said, is accommodation, Section 117, he said, yes, he needs accommodation, and accommodation should be paid by NHS or health and the local authority. And yeah, that's what we said. And also, what matters? What factors matters?
Yeah.
We said it needs medication because to prevent relapse, and also needs. He will need a carer to take care of his needs, personal needs. And also, wait. Then also support. What are you going to say?
Say when you finish, I'll add to it.
So we said that the factors we needed is needs, take care of his needs, personal care, medication, and also a carer to prevent a relapse, to keep on monitoring, and also, he needed to be in a supported accommodation. Maybe she could add on.
This part which says what factors matter is we are thinking about his mental health, and for that reason we're thinking about the consistency of medication. So to ensure that he has his medication as and when it should happen on a regular basis, and also to provide support in terms of maybe you need a caseworker when he's in, but in his care and support needs, you will have a support plan. And the support plan will be guided by the support workers and the people around him in terms of the immediate care that he's receiving in the supported accommodation that he is.
Okay, can I just ask a question? Why do you think he needs to go into supported accommodation?
In terms of, in some accommodation, they are not really, it's not like a full personal care support or anything, but just guiding them, because you have people who need guidance in terms of, say, for example, you have a client who comes into a supported accommodation. You check to ensure safety and well-being is met in terms of, is the room clean and tidy? Are they living in a standard environment? Because some people hoard, and if you don't go in and check, then you find that their situation, and sometimes you need to engage with them to, say, for example, encourage tidying up their rooms like on a weekly basis.
So basically, some people need that additional
support. Yeah.
Okay, that's really good. Thank you.
So what about the groups? Have any other group identify maybe
Anything
different
else?
actions or that you would like to? Yes.
So basically, that it also mentioned about like due to relapse risk, where like we can actually relate to like some kind of addictions with substance misuse and stuff. So we can relate wherein you need to encourage the person like with their medication assessment and things. So medication assessment, encouraging to go to their appointments.
Yeah.
Appointments, and like also important that they are not isolated, and engage them in activities and things. So the type of encouragement is needed where he or she needs to meet the support like in a
supported housing.
So that's the important reason we also support about a supported home, why the person should be placed in a supported home, where his physical and also mental needs are also seen, also the medical needs are also
You
seen.
also have people who have mental health,
needs.
but living in ordinary accommodation, so a council flat anyway.
Exactly.
I don't know if this group wanted to say anything, but yeah.
Anything? Okay, we talked around the kind of supported accommodation that we want for him. Because it's mentioned due to him not relapsing, he has a high risk of relapse. We thought a 24-hour like supported accommodation.
They tend to be
that's kind of like secure. So that they can give him the maximum support that he requires to ensure that he's engaged, the usual supported living program, and that would obviously keep him occupied and hopefully engaging with staff and not relapsing, and that would also monitor any medication needs that he has as well. And my colleague also mentioned about if there's any issues around drug use, that would also help to actually keep him engaged and away from that.
Can be monitored.
In most cases, they would monitor that and be able to also bring in services quickly for him if there's any issues.
Okay.
Yeah? So that's the only other
That's really
thing
good. Just one thing I want to point out, the thing about accommodation. So somebody can have mental health. As I said, they can live in just a council flat somewhere or in their own home, and they can get... might not be 117, but a carer can go in and support with medication. So where they're compliant and there's no issue, that can happen in ordinary housing. But you remember the case I described to you earlier, the young lady who needed a bespoke type of house? Yeah. So that is referred to in case law as accommodation plus. So where somebody's mental health is such that they need a specific type of accommodation to ensure they remain compliant, they do not relapse, we're trying to avoid readmission, they would have to be considered, it's what is called accommodation plus under the Mental Health Act. So always bear that in mind when you're assessing somebody. If you're making a case for why somebody can't go back to their flat, how many times have they relapsed? What happens with their medication? They disengage with the CMHT. CMHT can't find them for months, etc. Things like that. And the lady I spoke about who lives in this bespoke house, you couldn't put them in an ordinary council flat, for example, because he needed all the specifications around lighting. Even the bathtub had to be a specific design in terms of how the water goes in, because she can sort of, submerge herself, she can fill the bath up. Yeah. So every little detail had to be thought of. And all the windows, the locks, she wasn't prevented from going out, but she needed support around her, even if she was going into the back garden, for example. And I don't know if you've heard about you probably have the Mental Capacity Act as well, and something they call DOLS. Yes. So she not only had that, she also had the DOLS, which is a further restriction because of the risks. One of the things you have to remember in mental health is always assess the risk of somebody not only being a risk to themselves, but also a risk to others. Yeah? And sometimes when people are discharged, they're on particular drugs. Some of the antipsychotics need regular monitoring, like blood tests, because of the impact they can have on other, some people suffer really bad side effects, so they need regular, blood tests. Some people will refuse to go to the either the GP surgery or the CMHT for their regular depot injections. So sometimes they'll arrange a taxi for them. If they don't, they won't go. Yeah, and some people, as you say, their living circumstances, they need that prompting. Pick your clothes off the floor. Let's do this today. You need to engage them in activities. Just keep them occupied. So some people need that long-term support, and maybe after a while, if they're stable, they could go into general housing. But you can imagine it takes a long time to be able to determine whether somebody is able to live independently again. So always remember accommodation plus. If the mental health is related to their housing situation, so if they need a specific type of housing, it's accommodation plus, not general housing. Yeah?
Can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Like the young girl you were trying to tell us about the high risk of her mental illness. Like if you want to talk about the statistics, is it common or just once in a while, rarely?
Uncommon. I've never met anyone with that particular profile. This was the first time I met someone with that profile.
Oh, thank God, it's not widespread.
No. Yeah. It's very unusual for somebody to have 5 to 1. Well, they are on call. So if you got really escalated, there's 2 on call that can be summoned if they need help, if the 5 need help, and it's round the clock.
I've heard of one who is a boy, 16-year-old, a cannibal who wants to eat people, kill and eat people. He's on 4 to 1.
4 to 1, yeah.
16-year-old.
Yeah. People have conditions. People are born. Yeah.
He has plans of killing someone and eating that person. 16.
Yeah. And a lot of people are a risk to themselves as well. Mm-hmm. A lot of people attempt several suicide attempts, ongoing. So you really need to keep an eye on them. Yeah, we can do a second one, yeah.
There's a question here from that.
No. Let it be. No, because while you were talking about the cases, I have a case where this gentleman is under Section 117, and he has not had his depot injection since 2023. And he is in a supported accommodation, which is a 24-hour support. And, there's...
So how are they managing it?
And they are saying there's no relapse, nothing is going on. But then he does not stay in the accommodation either because he only sleeps here. When I saw him, he said, "My dear, I only sleep here. I don't live here."
That's quite risky.
And when I went, I said, "Can I have a look at your room?" And when I looked at the room, my heart sunk. I felt so disappointed.
Is in a supported accommodation?
It's in a supported accommodation, which is a 24-hour support. There is no furniture visible. He's sleeping on the floor, and it makes my heart I just felt, and I just don't
We can
know.
only keep our fingers crossed that when he's out and about, he keeps himself safe and other people are safe.
We are not sure because we are not sure what's going on because he is drug and alcohol use, and he has health problems that developed. So for me at this time, when I go back to work on tomorrow, on Wednesday, I am attending a safeguarding meeting because of that, because it's
it should have been reviewed. Even the social worker.
Because I went in and review. I was the one who went in and review. So
you can highlight those your concerns in your assessment.
Yeah, I've done that.
You've done that.
Yeah, I've flagged up safeguarding around neglect.
There's one question that is bothering me.
Yes.
Maybe since mental health is your area of specialty. Sorry. Since mental health is area of specialty, is there any way possible that government, either the local or federal, can implement a general screening for the population, like what they do in breast? We have breast screening. Yes, I know what you mean. We have cancer screening, diabetic screening. Because it touches my heart when we are in the news or when we read newspaper. All of a sudden, randomly, somebody came and started shooting, macheting, all those things. When I see it in the news, it touches me. Then I say, is there any way government could have a parameter they can use, like a tool, how they invite people to come for breast cleaning, they should also invite ordinary population to do that. So we'll be able to detect those that have mental health illness that make them just disrupt people.
I know exactly what you said, and it makes sense theoretically, but how do you get people to go in and, some people who've got long and enjoying mental illness don't think there's anything wrong with them.
Oh my God.
They think something is wrong with you. So it's for somebody to be convinced enough that there's something wrong with them, for them to take part in screening. People, why are you screening me? I'm fine. Nothing wrong with me. Although the behavior and the presentation says something completely different. I think that would be quite challenging. It might be bordering people's human rights, going up to people and asking them, do you want to come in for a screening of your mental health? Some people might take offense.
Offense to it.
So it's a nice idea.
They asked men to go for prostate screening and cancer. They can still implement it in general mental health.
They could. Yeah. They could. But how that will work in practice, I don't know.
Sorry, can I just input in Chichi's? I went on a mental health shadowing at the AMP. That's a mental health practitioner and the doctor in the hospital with a patient. That patient was a high-profile health service staff. She had a breakdown at work on Friday. They sent her home. Her manager sent her home. What she did, she went home. She had a full-blown mental health psychosis crisis at home in front of her two daughters, one 11, one is 14 years of age, and her husband, who was battling with cancer. They were helpless. They sent her into hospital that day. That was Saturday, and I went in on Tuesday with the team to see her. And by that time, she's denying that she has any mental health issues, and she was fully gone out of it. She had two staff at the door that are there supervising her at all times. And the things that she was saying at the time, it does not make sense. Nothing makes sense, but she wants to go home. She didn't feel that anything was wrong with her, and she wants to go back to work. She did not want her hospital information to be disclosed to the place that she works, which was a local authority too. So, and it's just within days, and she's denying. They had to section her on the hospital.
I was just going to ask
mental health
whether
act.
they had a mental health act assessment.
Yes, because at that moment she even told the doctor if she goes home, because they could have sent her home, but she said she would not be taking any medication.
Yeah.
So that's a risk that nobody could really, all of us, we go through circumstances and situations at some point in our life which we either identify or we do not identify at the time.
Sometimes we all have some mental, it just takes something to trigger.
So it's difficult for us to go and screen ourselves and all the rest of it. It's people not going to go forward to say because some people don't feel for that particular person.
Because of the stigma that's
it's
attached.
Stigma, it's cultural values and beliefs and all the rest of it. So, it's kind of a bit tricky situation to go into for us to go and say, oh, we're going to do mental health screening because we all think we are fine. Sometimes, we have little challenges, but that's all.
And sometimes we don't find out about people till they actually come into hospital.
Yes.
We don't know what's been going on. So I have a client right now, first admission, she's in her 70s. And it's only when she came into hospital we realized that she is a hoarder, very severe hoarder. She's so hoarded a flat, she can't use the front room, she can't use the kitchen. She just has enough space to walk to her bed. But it's funny, the whole flat is hoarded, but her bed is very neatly made. And all the books in her room are all well stacked. But the rest of the house is just full of stuff. And usually people who hoard, it's usually as a result of trauma, some traumatic event. And it's a coping mechanism. So they keep things for comfort or reassurance, etc. And They've asked me to assess this lady. I've been to the flat a couple of times. It is bad. It's very bad. It's bad. It smells bad. The first time I went. But I've been in worse, is what I'm saying. I've been to visit somebody and I put my foot on the floorboard and I felt I was going down. So some people, we don't get to know about their living conditions until they actually end up in hospital. But you have to always keep an eye out for good signs, for something that you could work on. Yeah. So this lady has been saying she wants to go home. They've managed to stabilize her. She's taking her medication, etc., and she wants to go back home. Now my colleagues are saying to me, "How can you send her back to that flat?" I said, "But it wasn't the flat that made her come in. She was found wandering in another area, confused. It wasn't the flat. She's quite happy in her flat. So we have to work with her. People who are holding, they've been holding for years. It's not something you can go in and fix overnight, or you can't just go in and clear somebody's flat. And another added complication with her, she actually owns her own flat. She's not a council flat, because there's a case where a council actually went to the court and got a court order to actually clear somebody's flat because they refused to engage. They wouldn't let anybody in. They wouldn't let environmental health in. The council had to go to the court in the person's best interest to clear the flat. But where somebody owns their own property, now that's different. So you have to find ways of working with that person. So what I'm proposing to do with this lady is, in fact, the second time I went, I left early the first time. And she said to me, "I cleared out 2 bags, And I thought, "Did you?" I didn't believe her. But when I went the second time, the smell had gone down, and she actually had cleared a couple of bags. And she proceeded to clear in a couple more bags. Because we had built up that rapport, she sort of, that trust. And I said to the doctors on the ward, we can either send her home with a package of care, get a carer to go in once or twice a week. She's a very proud woman. She worked as a librarian, very educated. Get somebody to build a relationship with her, and gradually she will clear and make space. But there's pressure on the beds. So I said, you either put in a care package, send her home, and we continue to monitor, work with her, keep on top of the holding, or we go to the court. Now you can imagine going to the court to get an order. First, the judge would just throw it out anyway, because this lady owns her own flat. The judge will say, go and find ways of working with her.
Because there's more people that
have
and I'm also worried of the time.
The time,
So because we won't be able to have
to
time
do all
for
of
our
it.
case,
But questions, discussion.
I'm going to leave it for now. I'm going to leave the question for now because I think what you said makes sense.
You have also presentations, right? Continuous.
Yes.
Only a few more slides.
Okay.
Only a few more slides.
Evgeny, did you have a question as well? No. Okay.
No, we'll
all right. Okay. So
maybe proceed with the presentation.
Proceed with the presentation, and then we can have more questions at the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So these are just some examples. I'm not going to go through these cases. You can read them in your own time. And they sort of highlight the issues I've been talking about. The main, these are some of the barriers to discharge, or these are some of the cases they're landmark cases, and they've contributed to case law. And we can always refer back to them when we're trying to make our point, putting our case across. So when you have time, you can go back and have a look at these. So the role of, what's our role within mental health? We have to do our assessment. To be honest, it's like we're the glue, if you like, because usually it's like different factions, and we are in the middle, trying to keep everything calm, make sure things move smoothly, and we have to liaise across a wide range of people. Apart from professionals, we have to link in with the voluntary sector and other organizations that can support as well. So we do our assessment. And then we organize the care, as I was explaining earlier. And of course, it has to be comprehensive, coherent, make sense, because if you send it upwards, it could be sent back down to you to make some adjustments. And of course, we advocate for the clients. So like I was talking about this lady with the hoarding, I don't think it's a 48-hour turnaround thing. I think it's going to take months, if not years, to work with her. Yeah. And then safeguarding. We have to make sure she's safeguarded. And in this case, I think having a package of care, somebody going in regularly, even if things can happen, we don't know what will happen, but at least it serves as a check, to make sure things are on an even keel, if you like. And then, of course, once I put in the package of care, I will go back in 6 weeks and review. She's agreed to work with me. She's actually started clearing some stuff, which I never thought I would see. So that means there's room there, I could take advantage of and try and get the flat cleared. But she's very clever because she knows the kitchen is hoarded, everywhere is hoarded. I said to her, so what do you do? How do you prepare your meals? Or do you cook? She's like, I eat cold food. Okay, fine. What about if you want something warm? I go down to the communal area and use the microwave. So she's sorted, she knows what she's doing. And she takes offense if people talk negatively about her, where she lives. But she will work with somebody if she has that relationship with the person. Yeah. So I'll go back in and review, and then when I've done my 6-week review, I will hand over to the community team for ongoing monitoring and to make sure, because what I'm trying to do is to make sure she doesn't come back into hospital. She's very good. She'll go and pick up her prescriptions. She'll take her medication. So if it's just a hoarding, we can work with that. Yeah. So this is a very important slide. You should keep this. Have they got copies of? Will you email it? Oh, you have. Yeah. The main things you need to consider when you're talking about 117 and the Care Act. Yeah. So under the Care Act, the local authority has a power and a duty, but it depends on the circumstances. They may provide or they may not. Yeah. But under the Mental Health Act, under 117, there's no. You have to. Yeah. Oops. I've pressed the wrong button. Yeah. Start. Yeah. That's it. Let me move it. Yeah. So, and can you see 117 is free of charge always. Under the Care Act, you could be means tested. There are ordinary residence rules under the Care Act for care and support. Under the Section 117, it depends on the last place where you were detained immediately before your detention. Immediately before your detention. So if I'm detained here in Uxbridge, and Uxbridge decide to put me in a home in Kingston, provided I stay in Kingston and I don't get a relapse, I don't get recalled, that would be fine. But if I get detained again in Kingston will have to pick up the tab. Yeah? And as I said, the Care Act is more about well-being, focus on outcomes. Yeah? And Section 117 is specifically about the mental disorder and how you keep an eye on it, how you monitor, and how you review. Yeah? I've put some references there for you. There's loads. If you just type in 117 or Mental Health Act, if you want to have a bit more, Mind and Rethink are good resources for information around mental health as well. And that case I was talking about, the pathological, there is a society, PDA society. You can actually Google them as well and see sort of the work that they do. Yeah? Okay, so those are all the slides. We've still got a few more minutes if you want to ask any more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anifa. Thank you.